Making the i5 Flow Nostakana is quite surreal. This image of Esther Malangu sitting in her BMW with her own artwork on the dashboard with the most satisfying grin of joy on her face inspired this project. She was the first woman to have painted an art car, and she's the absolute epitome of joy and passion in what you do. And now the ability for me to take this inspiration and interpret it in a way where I show my joy and passion for technology and innovation is quite an honor. I don't think there's a single point in time where I realized, that's it, I want to be an engineer. I came from quite a simple family, so my parents didn't study. My dad didn't even finish school, so we didn't even know what an engineer was. I didn't have much direct influence from my parents. They were quite traditional. My dad was more of the opinion that there were certain roles for girls, and the same as with my mom as well. So certainly something in the direction of tech and making and engineering wasn't proactively encouraged. So I think it started with an interest just as a child for how the world works, why things happen. And I had one book, it was called How Things Work. And I loved that book, and it kind of explained the world to me. Studying mechanical engineering took me around the world, so I ended up going to America, studying there, and then coming here to Germany to finish my PhD. And my PhD was in the area of haptics, so control of robots over networks with haptic input devices. I love this topic, and it just so happened that BMW was looking for a haptics expert at the time I'd graduated. The concrete idea of e-ink and color change in a car was sparked by a fascination for the technology of color change. I was so convinced of this idea that I pitched the idea internally. And within BMW, you can pitch an idea, get a little bit of money for it, and start building first samples. Around about the time point where I had this idea of color change, I'd also discovered the local makerspace, which is a workshop where engineers can just go in and use machines that are quite easy to learn, things like a laser cutter, things like simple electronics, 3D printers and such. And with these tools, you could make pretty simple prototypes. And so I made some simple prototypes that showed color change, and these prototypes developed with time and got complexer and bigger and led to the more complex color-changing cars that we brought out later on. So when I first pitched the idea of using e-ink and color change in a car, there was a lot of skepticism. You know, you'd show people samples, but it would be hard for them to picture, and it's not as if you told an idea and it got adopted quickly by people. So there was an awful lot of fighting involved here. The big moment came with the iX Flow. So after all these years of fighting, of hard work, of failures, the one point that remains in my mind was the morning after we presented the iX Flow at CES 2022. And one of the workers at the stands came to me and showed like a TikTok feed and said, your topic's going viral. And it was the first time I really took a pause for myself and realized this little project has gone somewhere. It's fascinated the world, and it was, for me, one of the first moments where I really knew all that work was worth it. There are certain fields within engineering that are perhaps a little bit more traditional. So, yeah, the truth is, when I go down to the workshop and they're all males and you're the only female there, obviously there's a difference there. And if I'm honest, you do feel less respected by some workers. I don't hold it against them. It's kind of new for them as well, and I feel this is something that the world kind of needs to get used to, because it just hasn't been the norm so far. But the truth is, it's real fun. It's hands-on work. You make things, you build things. You don't just make PowerPoints, but you produce actual things that you can hold and see. So when I look at this car, the i5 Flow Nostakana, there's just so much pride in there, because if you knew how the project started, it was a very humble start. So at the beginning, you just have an idea that's in your head. You have no samples, you have no money, you have no resources with which to implement your idea. And so now to be able to see this on the exterior of an i5 is quite surreal. Esther Malangu is a woman driven by passion, an absolute love of what she does. So the ability to work with her now is quite surreal. And of course, meeting her was an absolute highlight. We met in her homestead, and I showed her a piece of e-ink with her design changing colors. She looked at it. She was slightly confused at first, and then she gave it a thumbs up. And then we kept going, and I can't wait to show her the end product.